Today on the Sartorial Chef, homemade turkey meatballs with linguine and homemade Alfredo. Now who wouldn't want that? And for dessert, it's homemade bread pudding with sweetened mascapone cream and fresh raspberries. So why don't you pull up a chair and dine with me this evening?
So we're going to start with the bread pudding first, because we can get it in the oven, and then while it's cooking we can continue with the rest of our meal. I have preheated my oven to 375 degrees, and to start my recipe it's going to be 4 eggs I have right here. I'm going to crack them to a separate bowl so I can watch for eggshells. Nothing worse than getting an eggshell in the bread pudding. Now I've got my trusty wastebasket right here, so I can just crack the egg and toss the shell in. No mess, no fuss. Okay. Now I'm going to rinse my hands real quick just to get that egg off. Got my whisk here. I'm just going to beat the eggs a little bit before they go in, because I want all the ingredients to be well incorporated. So we're going to dump that in. To that, I'm going to add 2 cups of milk, which I have already pre-measured here. Now for the rest of my wet ingredients, it's a half cup of granulated sugar, a half cup of light brown sugar, some vanilla extract. I like to use the good vanilla. And one little trick, instead of getting out all these little measuring vessels, I just use the cap from the container. It's about a half a teaspoon. So we're just going to do 2 of those. And a few pinches of salt, just to cut through the sweetness. And we're going to finish it off with a little nutmeg, about 1/4 teaspoon, and some ground cinnamon, about 1/2 teaspoon of that. And we're going to give this a nice whisk. So I splurged and picked up this lovely Italian loaf at the grocery. I have already sectioned off about 1/4 of it for the rest of the meal. I'm going to be doing some garlic bread. And I'm just going to dice this into some pretty generous cubes for the bread pudding. So I just kind of sliced it in half, and then we're going to cube it into smaller pieces. I like nice big pieces because they absorb the custard really well, and it gives some nice body to the dish as a whole, as opposed to like using like sandwich bread or something less substantial. In this recipe you can really use any kind of bread you want. Sometimes I like using those loaves of King's Hawaiian. Sometimes I make a savory bread pudding with like a rye or a pumpernickel. So it's really just whatever your preference is. Okay, so we have our bread all sliced up. I'm just going to go ahead and dump it into the pan. Oops, I'm trying to get away from me. Okay, we're going to set this over here. Now I'm just going to pour my mixture right over top and try and get every last little bit of this out here. Very good. And then I'm just going to come in here and just kind of massage it get all the pieces incorporated into the custard. If there's some pieces sticking up, that's okay, because it's just going to turn a nice golden color in the oven. Let me rinse my hand off here. It's always good to make sure you keep your hands clean in the kitchen, because you want to avoid cross-contamination. Eggs, especially, something to keep an eye out on. Now, the secret to my bread pudding is butter. And not just any butter, but cold butter. It's very important that it's cold because it has a higher melting temperature than butter that you leave sit out. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to dice the butter into little cubes. Just going to do little kind of half-inch cubes. And then I take the butter and I like to drop them on top. Now what this is going to do, the butter is going to melt and it's going to create a nice golden crust on the top of our bread pudding. And frankly, everything's better with butter, I believe. You don't need too much, you just kind of want to spread it out evenly. Okay, so there is that. Greasy fingers. So the oven is already preheated to 375. We're just going to pop this guy in here. It's going to go for about 40 to 45 minutes. I'm a firm believer in the toothpick test, so I will have a toothpick out later on and we will just check to make sure that it is finished before it comes out. I have got my skillet here. I'm going to go ahead and get that heated up here, just on a medium heat. Because we don't want the outside to cook before the inside does. And just throw a little oil in the pan so they don't stick. I've already got my water going for the pasta. So I am using a ground turkey here. It's about 80-20. To that I'm just going to be adding 1 egg. And I've got my breadcrumbs here, about a half a cup of breadcrumbs. And then we're going to season it a little bit. Some garlic powder, about a half a teaspoon. Some onion powder, about a half a teaspoon on each. Little salt. Some fresh cracked pepper. And a little Italian seasoning. About a half a teaspoon of that as well. Okay. I'm also going to add just a splash of milk to keep them from drying out. Now it's time to get our hands dirty. We're just going to dig right in. Mix everything together. Okay, so we're just going to roll our balls out here. I'm going to lay them on the tray just to kind of get them out of the way. About golf ball size, not too big, not too small. That way they'll cook on the inside without ever cooking on the outside. Okay, so we have our meatballs ready. It's just a pound of meat, and it makes about 16 to 18 meatballs, depending on how big you make them. Uniformity is key. You want them all to be the same size so they cook at the same time as each other. And we're going to give my hands a good wash before I touch anything else. That's better. Okay, our pasta water is going good. As soon as that comes to a boil, we're going to throw our pasta in. And And one trick I like to do when I'm frying is I have a little water left on my hands, you flick it into the skillet, and if you hear it sizzle, you know you're ready to go. I'm going to grab some tongs here. And we're just going to plop these guys in the skillet. Oh yeah, you can hear that sizzle. That is a good sound of what's to come, which is going to be a nice crust on these meatballs. I try to space them out a little bit. You don't want to overcrowd your pan, because otherwise they're going to steam and not fry, which isn't a bad thing, but it's not going to taste as good. We're just going to leave these guys out for now. I don't want to overcrowd my pan. They got a nice little sizzle going on them now. I'm cooking them on a low heat because I want the inside to cook around the same time as the outside. Nothing worse than a burnt meatball with the raw inside. That's no good. Okay, our pasta is ready to go. I have already measured out some linguine here. It's about a half a box. So we're going to go ahead and throw that in. Now I've got this loaf of bread here. I've saved to do some garlic bread to go with the rest of our meal. So I'm going to do some nice, generous slices here. About 4 slices here, so that's about 2 apiece. Now to this, I'm going to put just a little oil over the top to kind of help them get a nice color on them in the oven. I also have some fresh garlic here. But sometimes it's good to splurge on the fresh ingredients. So I'm just going to break off a little of this. I only need a couple cloves will do me. Set the rest of this aside for now. Then we get a butter knife out here. I'm going to smash this garlic open. And then it should just peel right off. Just give it a nice little tap. Now for the bread, I am just going to rub the garlic. So you're going to get all that garlic flavor without actually the texture of the garlic itself. Discard this. Onto the Alfredo. I got some half and half. Splurged again. You can use milk or any kind of dairy really, but I really like the half and half because it gives it more body. You get a nice, richer flavor. So on a low heat, I'm just going to pour this in. And we're going to let it go for a while. Once it goes to boil, we're going to add our Parmesan. And it is time to give these babies a turn. Oh, look at that nice golden crust on the bottom. We're just going to turn these over and let the other side cook. Sometimes they don't want to cooperate. And we got some nice color on these guys. I think we can go ahead and add the rest of our friends here to the party. Let them kind of get their sizzle on. Okay, we are done with this for now. I'm just going to rinse this pan off. I'm going to use it to cook our bread. The bread is ready to go. I will set that here for now. I'm not going to throw it in just yet. Now this garlic, I've got a second purpose for this garlic. I'm not going to buy a whole clove of garlic just to rub on a piece of bread. So we're going to take this garlic and I am going to let it steep in my heavy cream, because that is just going to add another layer of flavor to our Alfredo. I am all about layering up when it comes to how I dress and when it comes to how I dress my food. And we're going to stir the pasta once more. You don't want to stir it too much, but it's good to get it moving every once in a while just to make sure it's not sticking together. And while I'm thinking about it, we are going to get a strainer out. So when the pasta is ready to come out, the pasta, that is boxed pasta, so it is going to cook about 10 to 12 minutes, give or take. If you like a little more al dente pasta, you can do like a 7 to 8 minute. I like mine to have a little bite, but not too much. I'm going to let that go. And I try, when I'm not too busy, I like to just kind of clean up as I go. So you'll see me constantly throwing things in the sink, putting things away. I'm a little claustrophobic. I don't like to have everything, all over the place. So, that is that. We are going to flip these other guys over. And they're just sizzling away. I love that sound. The sound of a good cook is what comes out of his kitchen. And when you hear something sizzling away like this, you know there's something delicious about to happen. And these guys here, they are ready to turn once more. I'm going to get them on this side here, just get a little color on the sides as well. I kind of think of this like, when you go tanning, you want to get a base coat all over. Well, the same thing with my meat. I want my meat to get a base coat all over. So we're just going to turn these guys. Once more. Get a nice color all over. And when it comes to pasta, I'm a taster. Sometimes I just will pick it out as I go and give it a little nibble. And this is pretty good. It's not too soft, it's not too toothsome. We're going to turn that off and we're going to let it sit for a minute. Our meatballs are going to go in the oven now. Set them down here on the bottom shelf. We will let those go away while we finish the rest of our meal here. So the pasta, I'm going to drain that. Now there's two philosophies on pasta. Some people like to rinse their pasta. I do not agree with that because you're losing all your starches when you do that. And the starch is what helps your sauce cling to your pasta. And you can't call yourself an Italian cook if your sauce does not cling to your pasta. I'm sorry. So we're going to turn that off. Now to these noodles, to keep them fresh, a little oil. And a little butter. Not a whole lot, just a smidge. And then we're going to whisk that in. And that is our noodles. So I'm just going to dump in this whole bag of cheese. Yes, the whole thing. It's a very decadent meal. And we're going to give it a nice stir. And the cheese is going to thicken this and turn it into our Alfredo. You want to keep stirring it though, so none of it sticks to the bottom and burns. Nothing worse than burning this down. cheese continue to melt. This is just coming together nicely. Yeah, you can see here it's a nice creamy consistency. Thing with Alfredo sauce, you want it just right. You don't want it too runny or it's soupy in your plate. You don't want it too thick or it's like glue. You want it just right. Nice runny texture. It's going to stick to our pasta nicely. I'm going to grab a couple of bowls, 2 plates. Set this over here. And we've got our pasta. I'm going to just go ahead and dish up a healthy serving of our pasta here. 2 bowls because I am not dining alone tonight. The lovely cameraman who you've got to meet is going to be enjoying this meal with me. Imagine that. Get every last strain of pasta out of here. This is good pasta. We don't want to waste the pasta. Okay. I'm going to set it aside. Our sauce is just luscious. Just I'm going to get a nice little ladle, and I'm going to just ladle the sauce over top the pasta. Now you could also just throw the sauce in with your pasta and stir it together if you want to do that. This could also be used as like a dipping sauce for bread, or if you're doing like a fondue. I also sometimes like to make little meatball sliders. Sometimes I'll use the Alfredo sauce versus marinara, just to shake things up a little bit. Our meatballs should definitely be ready now. So I'm going to pull them out. And I've got our bread here as well, nice and toasted. Alright, our meatballs have reached that golden number, 165. So I'm just going to plop a few on top. 3 is a good number. We'll save the rest for a rainy day. Pick out the best ones with the nice color on them. Now we still have our bread pudding going, but while we wait, I'm going to go ahead and give this a little taste here. I'm going to get a nice bite with everything in it, the meatball and the pasta and the Alfredo. Very good. The meatball, nice and moist. The problem with turkey sometimes is it likes to dry out, but if you keep an eye on it and you're good to it, it's going to be good to you. And the pasta is just the right cook time on that. It's not too hard, not too soft. The Alfredo is luscious and creamy. I get the notes of garlic. Very nice. So it is time to serve. So what do you think?
Very good. Very moist balls.
Thank you. And some bread. I love to just take a nice piece of hard bread and get in that sauce.
Love the crunch on there.
Well, I hope you save room for dessert, because I have a bread pudding on the way.
Always.
Okay. Alright, folks. Toothpick test time. I like to poke one side, and then I like to get a second opinion. And we are clean, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this guy out. It smells delicious. I wish you guys could smell it. You can see the butter has given us a nice crust on top. And I have my cooling rack here. We are just going to let this sit for a minute. Let it cool off a little bit. So we'll be ready to eat. Now while we wait, I'm going to make a few few things to garnish our bread pudding with. I have got some mascarpone here, which is just an Italian cream cheese, although I feel that it's a little sweeter than regular cream cheese, and it has a little more of a creamy texture to it. So, you know, regular cream cheese, you have to let it sit out and soften. This is ready to go. So I'm just going to dump that in our bowl here. To sweeten that with just a little granulated sugar. Because the cheese, it is a little tart. So just throw a little sugar in there. And we're just going to mix that in. This is looking good here. It's going to be a nice topping for our bread pudding. Now this also works good as like a nice fruit dip. You ever do like a fruit tray, just pop a bowl of this in the middle and it's good to go. Fresh raspberries. Because I figured with a decadent dessert like that, if you throw a little fresh fruit on it, you don't feel so bad about yourself. Now let's see a spatula here. We will just cut a few pieces here. And I'm going to grab a couple plates. One of my other weight loss tricks is small plates. Use a smaller plate. You can't fit as much food on there. So you can still have what you want, but you're watching how much of you're getting. And this guy should just slide right out because I greased my pan earlier. And this one too. It really, see, it's nice and firm, but then the outside has that gorgeous color on it. And then we're just going to take our mascarpone cream and dollop a nice healthy portion of that right on top. And then we will sprinkle on a few fresh raspberries. The raspberries, it's a healthier thing to do here, but it also gives it some nice color, because you notice the cheese and the bread pudding is all kind of the same shade of beige, so the red kind of gives a little pop. And we are ready for desserts.
Definitely looks delicious.
Bread pudding with mascarpone cream.
Perfect.
And some fresh raspberries just to kind of lighten it up a little bit. This is really good, guys. You can hear the crisp crunch from the crust we got on top of this bread pudding. The inside is nice and moist. It's not too eggy.
Perfect.
It's just the right amount. The mascarpone is a little tart. It plays nicely with the tart raspberry and kind of breaks up the sweetness of the pudding itself. So, you have been cooking with the Sartorial Chef. Until next time,